Alright, motherfrickers, I made a tier list of cartoon villains and I posted it on Discord, and all my friends yelled at me because they don't understand what opinions are, so I'm going to explain the tier list because that's what I do. Let's go!
Who are you people?
Actually, let's not go. I'm a busy boy and I haven't seen every show, though I do plan to watch a lot of these. But for now, the villains in this category are the Lich, Toffee, Hawkmoth, Black Hat, Lord Tyrek, Shendu, Chase Young, Quetzalcoatl, Character P-Doom, Maximus IQ, Abraham Cain, and Complex. All of these guys are from things I haven't seen, and thus they are all terrible and I hate them to say I'll die. Joking, obviously. A few of these I do plan on eventually watching, but for now, I can't really judge these guys. Also, before we get into the list proper, remember that these are my thoughts on the villains, not the shows themselves. And that's it. That's all the rules. That's all the stipulations. Let's get into the actual list. Here are the worst bad guys. Worst as in, like, they're not, like, good. But, I mean, they're not good because they're evil, but, like, not good as in, I don't like them. But, like, they're also not good as in they're not good. People may have joked before.
Boo! You stink!
I despise Eddie's brother with a passion. Yes, he was made to be hated, but God, if there's any character on this list I want to hit with a steamroller, it's this guy. He's a massive bully to his own brother. He's just the worst. Hey, remember when they gave Pac-Man fingers and teeth and a lame villain, even though Pac-Man is one of the most iconic villains of all time? And his name is Betrayus. Because if you don't know, he's a bad guy. This guy has two modes, generic businessman and actually a good guy. It isn't a list of people who make sandwiches for orphans. It's a list of people who make sandwiches for orphans and laces them with cyanide. Bowser in the Mario games is great. Bowser in the cartoon show makes me want to die. Cat is literally just Zim. There's absolutely nothing else to this guy. Remember how in this video I said I forgot Gumby existed? Well, I like double forgot these two existed. They're just kind of jerks for no reason, which is super cool and interesting. The only good thing to come out of Family Guy is the one clip of Brian getting ran over. The chicken was only made to animate as fight scene, and there's absolutely nothing else to him besides that. This lady is proof that women can simp too. She sees Tarzan once, and immediately wants him to be her king at all costs. The thirst is real. I'm gonna rank a lot of older villains pretty high. Professor Naughty Nutmeg, yes that is his real name, is like the lamest character to ever exist. I have legitimately no idea what to say about Snotty Boy, other than I feel like barnyard memes never die for some reason. This guy's name is Toad. I guess dumb names will be a theme. Is he even a villain? He only reappears in the openings in the movie. Okay, I want you to think of the most generic villain you could possibly think of for a kid's show. Like most generic name, design, everything. Congratulations, you made no heart for Care Bears. These two only have two appearances in the entire series. One where they have their plans followed by their own friend, and the other where it's stopped by a freaking bird. They're the most pathetic characters in this entire series. And this is the same series that invented Piglet. Picture this. You want to use Jafar on a cartoon, but he's dead in the Aladdin universe. What do? Make Diet Jafar. Available at your local Walgreens. Kid Planet villains are about as subtle as my own jokes, but this guy is objectively the best one since he's voiced by Jeff Goldblum. And in this section we have Cipher. Neat.
Nah, I don't really feel like it.
Simon Barr Sinister is a pretty standard villain, all things considered, and I was gonna put him in D, but then I saw this image of Peter Dinklage as him in the live-action movie, and I knew I had to put him higher. Mechanic Cat is also pretty standard. They are cat, so they can be C. Same thing applies to frogs. I know he's a toad, but frogs are just toads in denial. Did you know that this show is still running? I completely forgot it existed until I did the tier list, and it's still producing episodes for some reason. Anyways, yeah, Hackers are no case on. Eris is just a Madonna parody, and that's about it. If it was Nurgle instead, he'd be higher. If you've seen my last tier list video, you know how I feel about him. But Eris, eh.
And I'm gonna celebrate by ramming this iceberg lettuce into my mouth!
Get out of my brain!
Nothing much to say here. Just a standard bad guy, really. It's been a while since I've seen Static Shock, so I'm putting him here for now. Maybe he's better or worse than C, I don't really know. Same thing with Generator Rex. I actually like this show and this character, but he's barely even a villain. Dead, because he's a bear. Guys, quick, we need a villain for Dexter's Lab. Take Dexter and just make him bad. Phil, that's a brilliant idea. Go to my house and eat everything in my fridge. What if Azula and Ozai were composited into one character, but they were super lame? This lady. Okay, hear me out. These two are hilarious. But as villains, all they really do is yell at Zim, and they're just puppets to the control brains. My mom never let me watch this show, so I'm gonna assume Calamitous is a decent villain. He's voiced by Tim Curry, so it can't be that bad. It's time for the obligatory I don't know what to say about these characters segment that appears in every single tier list video. Yay! Salem looks cool and is a decent threat, but is lacking in personality. He mostly just lets her henchmen do everything. The Red Guy is hilarious. It's no surprise he basically took over two different shows, but can you really call him a villain? He's like a nuisance at best. Cobra! I've retoken that take literally like 6 times. Try to get the Cobra voice. I just can't freaking do it. Anyways, yeah, he's decent, I guess, whatever. Oscar was the best part of Hazbin Hotel, but he only has a single episode to his name. We don't really see him do anything particularly villainous in it, so that lowers him here. Pretty much same thing here. Evil Morty has some good build-up, but not any real payoff yet.
Hand it up to me, lads!
This guy dies before the show even starts, and he's still a main antagonist. And I respect that. I love that the animation in this show is pretty poor overall, and then there's this guy who just put in all the money. Stupring as usual! I need to stop doing impressions. Honestly, for a devil, he's a pretty nice and reasonable guy, all things considered. If I was a robot, I'd actually hope to end up here. This freaking penguin has unironically given me nightmares, and for that, he's B tier. Argos is actually a pretty surprisingly great villain. He's threatening, powerful, looks cool, and is a talk show host. The last part is why he didn't make it higher. This dude is metallic hands down the single coolest person to never be shown on screen. Best thing about Blowhole is that there was this running gag throughout the show that no one thought he was real. I was legit shocked as a child when it was revealed that he is real. Gargamel is the only good thing from the Smurfs movies. Now if that doesn't prove that he is a good villain, I don't know what does. However, he was in the Smurfs movies, which means I can't put him any higher than B. The Martian Queen from Duck Dodgers is a perfect mix of both being intimidating and funny. Just for the love of God, never Google her. Zurg was voiced by Wayne Knight in the show, who voices Al in Toy Story 2. I always just found it kind of interesting. Sideshow Bob starts as the perfect foil to Bart, and an amazing over-the-top psychopath, and possibly Kelsey Grammer's best role. Then, like everything Simpsons does, they just milk him to death. Daddy, Mr. Game & Watch. I love tentacle hentai. Also, Vilgax is pretty cool. In Tailspin, Don is an honorable thief, and DuckTales, he's a meme lord. I don't know which version I prefer. This is a twist with Professor Venomous, which is legitimately one of the best twists I've seen in the cartoon. I won't spoil it, but it's great. The final 4 in this section will be characters who either reformed or became less of a villain, even though I really still like them as characters. Those being Baron Jackson, who completely reforms by the end of the first season, Nom Nom, who's basically Logan Paul if he was a furry and less of a dick. Starts off as a glory hog, but he does end up gaining some sort of friendship with the bears. Brain, who's an S-tier character but a lame villain. And finally Jasper, who despite a great start to her arc, just kind of fizzles out in the original series. She does get better in the future though. On to the A tiers.
You're phenomenal!
Lilo and Stitch was literally my childhood, so I had to, of principle, put Hamster Wheel in A. How do ghosts even work in Danny Phantom? Is that like half dead? I just kind of skip over that. I have decided to never grow a mustache, because I know it will never look as good as Sam's. You know, it's funny. This guy is basically Satan, yet he's not even close to being the scariest thing in the show. Still a good villain though. The original Thundercats is like 99% pure cheese, and then there's this dude, who's a legitimately threatening presence. I'm confused why they decided to change his name, but Slade still remains a legit threat, which says a lot considering that most of the Teen Titans should be able to reduce him to smoke in like seconds. Like I said, I love classic villains. They're simple, but they don't need it to be anything besides entertaining, which Bluto is. If Dick Dastardly didn't exist, we wouldn't have had Waluigi and Robbie Rotten, so he gets high. However, we also wouldn't have gotten Scoob, so maybe it's not all good. I love that Draken is just the absolute lamest character to ever exist. All the other villains in this show are super threatening, and then there's just this moron. Being a loser in a sea of excellence is something I feel like we can all relate to. Shredder has gone through every villain trope. Goofy cartoon villain, weird twist villain who's an alien, serious gang boss, a literal demon. Can't wait for the next reboot when he's a magical anime girl. Honestly, this dude's in the right. Fairies do exist, and Timmy is an awful person, and he had his life ruined by Timmy before he was even born. Poor guy. A very tragic character. One that's certainly a villain, but also you really want to see redeemed. Darkwing Duck is a very light show, and then there's Mr. Psycho Murder Duck. I like Mr. Psycho Murder Duck. Amelia completely takes over the train, something that the later seasons showed to be super hard, yet you can also understand why. I would say Simon is the better Infinity Train villain, but Amelia definitely has this major lasting effect, being the main reason the Apex is formed, and we even get to see how she starts off in book 4. I've been revisiting the old Transformers cartoon, and I'm surprised how good of a villain Megatron is. Maybe that's what I'll do a Transformers video on. Maybe. Scooby-Doo is a franchise with ghosts, vampires, literally Satan himself, and yet somehow a parrot is its best villain. Take that however you will. Anything Eartha Kitt touches is gold. Make her a robot and it won't change anything. Most regular episodes start off normal and end with Cthulhu, so with a plot like that, it's hard to have the big bad that really makes impact. But they somehow really pull it off well with Anti-Pops being the greater scope villain, being far stronger than any of the previous antagonists, and connected to Pops, who was seemingly the most simple character in the show. For a character with only a few appearances in the show, he certainly makes an impression. Gumball is known for messing with the normal cartoon formula, and I think one of its best examples is making this random background character the main villain, and it's somehow actually working. Just barely on the edge of S tier is Lord Dominator. Similar to Anti-Pops, you completely change the show, with Wander questioning if he can truly redeem her, and every villain cowering in fear of her, and still remaining a funny and quirky villain, since she's a bit of a dork without the armor. Okay, we only have 11 villains left, and before we get to the top 10, I want to make you guys all hate me.
I don't know! I haven't thought of it yet!
Okay, I don't think I need to explain what's good about Joker. The animated Joker basically defined him for a good amount of time. Mark Hamill voiced him in basically every animated interpretation of him. He's a perfect mix of funny and threatening, and he is, in my opinion, the best version of Joker. But simply, he's not a cartoon originating character, so I don't feel comfortable with putting him higher. That's it. On to the top 10.
Free my form from the abyss. Dormant magic now unchained.
In the original show, Magica was a pretty fun, albeit standard cartoon villain. In the remake, she's far better. Even when depowered, she has this air of power and superiority around her, and before she was revealed to be a major threat, as a shadow, she basically emotionally abused Lena up until she was able to get her staff and physical form back. Then immediately takes over the entire town. Fantastic villain.
In my country, we exchange a pleasant hello before asking questions.
For some reason, the tier list has Azula instead of Ozai, despite him being the main antagonist, but I'm not complaining. Azula is the perfect example of a sociopathic perfectionist. Everything she's ever done since she was a kid was calculated, and she has the bite to back up her bark. One of the most satisfying moments in animation history is when she finally loses. Instead of a death, she's just simply defeated, and breaks down into a complete blind rage, losing her cool and her sanity. And above her, we have Funny Skeleton Man. What's there to say about Skeletor that hasn't been said before? He's one of the only villains you would say is more popular than the hero. Heck, more popular than his entire franchise. Skeletor alone basically defines skeletons. How many skeleton characters can you think of that base himself off of him? Besides being iconic, he's the single most entertaining thing to come out of the show. Every second he's on is just a blast. I love him. Beautiful boy.
Bust.
Mojo Jojo is a super interesting character. He's basically a failed experiment being made by Professor Utonium, but he gets thrown to the side because of the girls. Honestly, he could have been a good guy under the right circumstances, but he fell down a bad path, became hyper-intelligent, and legitimately powerful. He beat a monster the girls couldn't even touch, and took over Townsville, where he did an actually good job of running it. He's also the only good thing in the reboot.
Hey, don't take it personally. I just assume everyone is lying.
Dude, it's Plankton. I don't have to say much here. He's one of the funniest cartoon villains. He's a legit threat when he needs to be. Given us memes for decades. He's 99% hot gas. He's Plankton. I don't need to explain it, motherfuckers.
For I am Aku, the Shogun of Sorrow.
I don't think there's a villain as crucial to their series as there is Aku. The entire plot of all 5 seasons was simply to kill this guy, and he just refuses to kick the bucket. Before the show even starts, he's telling you about how he single-handedly took over the world and sent the one person who could kill him back in time. But even then, he's a big doofus. He almost slips into a bro persona every once in a while, and made a story for children about how cool he is. Beautiful boy.
Your brother is too weak to go home. He will soon become part of my forest.
Over the Garden Wall is only 10 short episodes long, but it still somehow managed to build up Beast perfectly. Every character the boys talk to always tell them how they need to do everything to avoid the Beast. But when they finally meet him, despite his absolutely terrifying design, he's actually quite calm, yet unbelievably evil, having murdered several children just to keep himself alive. He seems like your normal deal with the devil trope, but there's no upsides to working with him. Any encounter with the Beast will either lead to you being his slave or dead. Beast is completely twisted, and is a being made of pure evil, representing sadness, depression, hopelessness, and even suicide. And above him, we have funny obese Catman. My love for Pete seems strange. I think I care about him more than any other person in the world, but he truly means a lot to me. He's funny, of course, but I also love him because how he's truly important to Disney lore, being made before Mickey and even Oswald. Honestly, I'm gonna make an entire video about Pete, or heck, I actually plan to include him in a certain subscriber special, but for now, he can just stay here in the bronze medal spot.
Well, I'm out of here. What just happened?
I don't think anyone should be surprised that Doofenshmirtz is this high. I have to talk about him almost as much as I talk about freaking Kirby. Doof may not be pure evil like these guys, but he's so entertaining. He's a surprisingly great dad. For a comedic character, he's surprisingly deep because of his backstories and relationship with other characters. I also plan to talk about Doof more, even though I talked about him for literally 30 minutes straight. He's by far one of my favorite characters. But number one can only go to one character. And you probably have to figure out who it was, considering that he's the only character who is on my channel banner who's on this tier list. Bill Cipher. Where do I start? I have praised a lot of villains for being both entertaining and legit threats, and there's no character in history who can combine them as greatly as Bill. Gravity Falls was basically the show that got me back in animation after my edgy cartoons are for kids phase, with a big part of that being the mystery angle, and Bill himself to this very day is one of the biggest mysteries in really any show. What else to say? He's got a great design, a great personality, good voice, great aura of mystery to him. He's pretty much single-handedly made Gravity Falls one of my favorite cartoons. He's just the best cartoon villain, and honestly, my favorite villain of all time. And there you go. 100 cartoon villains ranked. Not really, because like, I think 10 of them I haven't seen, but like, shut up. That's all that counts. I should mention that this tier list was not made by me. I found it on Tier Maker. I will leave a link in the description to the tier list maker. If I made this, it would have been differently. There's a lot of great villains that I feel like should have been on here, like Horde Prime from She-Ra, Sam Hain from Real Ghostbusters, Arvos from Dragon Prince, either Dutchins or Terrence from Foster's Home, because that was my favorite CN show for a while, Tom the Cat if you consider him a villain, I don't freaking know, Endive. I also would have swapped out a couple of villains, like Marvin's my favorite Looney Tunes character, so I would put him instead of Sam. Obviously, I already said before, Simon instead of Amelia. Instead of including Snapchat, I would have included the Antichrist. I'm surprised this didn't include Snivy Whiplash from Billy Do-Right. He's the originator of that whole trope of the mustache-twirling villain who ties a woman to tracks. He's the first image you get when you Google villain. Heck, he's even the freaking icon to this tier list. Also, 3 DC villains and none from Marvel. Joker and Slade I get, but freaking Mechanic Cat instead of Lex Luthor? Whatever. Also, I apparently needed to mention this in every single video I make, but this is just my opinion. If you don't have the same opinion, make your own. It's literally a tier list in the description. I don't care if you think I'm wrong or right. It's just opinions, they're not facts. Don't go yelling, don't write a freaking 50-page essay in the comments about how Rancid Rabbit should have been higher or whatever. But whatever, none of my business. Why is something out with my hands?
Well, this stinks.